Hey, I know I've been doing unannounced lives with these, but I feel like more people watch them later anyway, so that's why. Okay. We are going to do the fifth box of the Hunt to Killer Cadence Theater storyline, and that's what we're doing. So just to recap, okay, there was a murder like 83 years ago at the Cadence Theater. They found a body in a trunk. How they missed that for 83 years is beyond me. Whatever. Okay, just sticking with it. The murder was Viola Vane, and she was murdered with a cane that belonged to her mother, and it was in her own dressing room, and she was stuffed into her own trunk, and then uh, the trunk had to have been carried and then put into an elevator and then taken up to the attic into like the prop room, and then that's where she stayed for 80 some odd years. Okay. And so far we have rolled out the prop master guy or stage master or whatever. I'm not sure what his actual title is, but that guy has been ruled out. The director's wife has been ruled out, and her ex-fiance has been ruled out. She was in a love triangle with the director, and he left her for another actress that like didn't know that they were secretly involved in a relationship, basically. So she was talking to Viola about like, oh, me and the director, so like that that happened. That's a whole thing. And her mom basically had arranged her entire engagement with her co-star. It's weird. Okay, people in the 1920s were wildin'. Okay, but so far, that's what we've got. I don't know what we're going to be solving for this time, but we've ruled out 3 suspects so far. So hopefully we can get to like who did it and why. That's what I want to know. All right, let's get into it. Hi, I think I may have found something big. I've been packing up all the Cadence's old records, sorry. Trying to make sure nothing related to the case gets left behind if the sale of the building goes through. Oh, by the way, like the member of the boards or whatever are trying to sell the theater from the current owner. That's what's going on here. Who also happens to be the granddaughter of the 2 people that haven't been ruled out as murderers yet. Isn't this fun? I love this. Okay. As I was clearing out my desk just now, I found some old papers stuck in one of the drawers. I had to pull really hard to get them to come free, and when I did, I realized the drawer had an honest-to-God false bottom. Ooh. Hey, Erin! We're doing the 5th Hunt to Killer box. I have the 6th one already, so I was like, oh, I really need to do this. Okay, so we have a false bottom in a drawer, and I just dropped something. That's fun. I've been sitting at this desk for years and never had the slightest clue it was there. So now I have yet another mess of papers and junk to sort through. I'm sending you a few pages from the drawer because they're in code. Oh, great. And I added a picture on the virtual desktop so you'll have an idea of the entire context. Some of the personal effects in the drawer look really familiar, but honestly, I'm not sure who all of this belonged to. The desk has been here since the Cadence was founded, so a lot of different people have had access over the years. Obviously, whoever put it there had something to hide. Ooh. It's incredible just how many important clues have been right under everyone's noses for decades. It feels like every time I open another storage crate, some new question about my family is waiting inside. I found the ribbon I'm sending you in a box labeled Summer 34 right on top of the letter from Hector with all the numbers at the bottom. But Hector never had any children, so whose baby was that pin supposed to be for? Ooh, we got surprise babies? Okay. I have the feeling I already know the answer to that question, but I'm almost afraid to say it. If I'm right, that changes everything, not only who I am, but who my entire family is. And if my grandparents hid the truth from my father for his entire life, what else might they have lied about? Oh, we got some shadiness happening. I love this. I don't want to believe it, but I can't deny it's at least a possibility. There's something else that's been on my mind too. I keep thinking about the cut up blueprint I sent you last time, which seemed to be marking the spot for some other hiding place between the key that was found on Viola's body and that lockbox that was delivered to the theater in 34. It doesn't seem completely impossible that someone left more than a body hidden somewhere in the Cadence. Ooh. Okay, now I tried to put that blueprint together and like I got really close and then I gave up because it was like getting complicated. So, but I didn't notice any like special hidey holes. I don't know. Maybe I should have tried harder. I don't know. I gave up. I could totally be wrong. Maybe that lockbox is long gone, or there could actually be a box and we'll find it out it's empty. I don't know, but at this point, I'm desperate enough to try anything if there's a chance that whatever I find might be able to save the Cadence. What's the worst that could happen? If I do nothing, the Cadence is still going to be turned into condos or a 3-story frozen yogurt emporium. That sounds amazing. Or some other midtown monstrosity. So why not knock a few holes in the walls? Even if I don't find anything of value, maybe that lockbox will contain some information that'll bring us closer to finding Viola's killer. I think it's a theory worth exploring. I'm going to try and narrow down where to look for the lockbox, but I don't want my little treasure hunt to distract you from your main objective. The password for the virtual desktop is still Porter, but the password for our case folder is Waldorf. You can never be too careful after all. When you know who you want to clear, send me a message through the email shortcut on the virtual desktop. Make your subject line doubt and put the full name of the suspect you want to dismiss in the body of the message. Okay, so we're eliminating another suspect. Interesting. Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of suspects left. There's like her mom who owns the murder weapon, but doesn't necessarily mean that she's the one that used it on her. I still think it was a man. The director who she was having an affair with, the other actress who he was having an affair with, and then the owner of the theater, which would be the lady in the letters grandfather. This is getting interesting. So let's see. We have some notes here. Such time I've given to this enterprise only to have my whole world turned upside down. What was once my foundation is now over my head. Face it, the play isn't working, even though my love is in it. I'm going to need to call the babukas again. I don't know what that word is. And before they have to be the ones to pick up the telephone. Oh, okay. I think this is a coded letter. That would make sure because like the next sentence, the first 2 letters are absolutely gobbledygook. So I'm gonna guess babukas is probably not an actual word. Good. So something happened to men who don't repay men like them. Ooh, do we have like a mob? Like they were borrowing money from the mob? I mean, it was the 20s going into the 30s. I'm just saying. Okay. Ooh, remember. Okay. I don't know if you guys will remember, but in like some of the earlier boxes, we found out that like they were being a little creative with the books. Mob influence. I'm just saying. It's a thing. This is the like New York too, so heavy mob scene. I need to pay them what I owe, and that is underlined. Write it down, look at it, maybe then it will finally sink in. I'll forgive you, my darling. I know you'll make it up to me. Ooh, what? What could I do to get what they need? Well, there is one thing I could use. My only thing, and only is underlined. It is my livelihood. It is everything. It is what brought my love to me in the first place. But what if I don't? What would that mean for me and you? So I'm assuming that he's talking about the theater, like giving them the right to the theater or something. If I coded words, where would that leave us? If I left this place and these people, I'm sure I could convince you to come with me. I can imagine it I can imagine it in verse in the way I know you would appreciate, a way of which I know you are fond. Okay, and then we've got some stuff that has been scribbled out down here. The two of us atop the world, atop the Empire State Building, you not in the arms of any old buffoon, but in mine. A world that means to keep us apart would make us spend 120 days in Sodom, I think is what it says. And then no, 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 no is written, and that's not marked out. Interesting. Such vulgarity, such mundanity is inappropriate for a beauty such as you, my darling. Will anything be good enough? Some people just aren't poets, I suppose. Oh, if only I could write something for you, as the bard wrote for the dark lady. I too do rise at thy name. If only my nobler part were more inclined, I would write tales of you as my bright lady. Maybe one day, maybe an epic. Of course, there's always the problem of something in code, but such problems shall be dealt with before we can be together. What I have to deal with now is what's directly in front of me, what's waiting on the west side if I don't get them what I owe. I'd never let such problems fall to your feet. I've come to terms that I might have to sell, even if just to pay off the coded word, but I'm going to guess it's mob. I don't want to, and I don't think you'll be pleased, my bright lady. But even so, it seems like good hands await the coded word with Ira. This may have brought us together, but I know we don't need it to stay together. Okay, I'm just gonna say this sounds like the director, or not the director, the freaking the theater owner. I think she was dallying with the theater owner, and he's like in with the mob and owes them a bunch of money, and like, shoo, that's a lot to unpack. I'm just saying. Okay, here's what fell. Okay. Memorial held for missing actress. Interesting. Okay. 10 years after the disappearance of Broadway ingenue Viola Vane, the theater where she once performed has finally grieved its erstwhile star. The Cadence Theater, where Vane garnered acclaim for her role in the popular comedy The Strange Duo, held a memorial Monday for the beloved actress who has not been seen since that day in 1934. Evelyn Adler, better known to theatergoers as Evelyn Kittredge, began her career on the stage as Vane's understudy and now runs the theater with her husband, Ira. She organized the memorial to recognize the many ways Vane's disappearance has shaped the lives of those who cared for her. Taking Viola's place in You Can Leave It Right Here was such a bittersweet opportunity, she said. Losing her was a terrible shock, but without that tragedy to bring us closer, my husband and I might not have started a family together. I often wonder if I'm living the life she was meant to lead. Mrs. Adler said she hoped the memorial would finally lay to rest a painful period in the theater's history. We may never know what really became of dear Viola, but whenever I'm on stage, I can feel her looking down on me from above. Creepy, because she literally is above in the attic and she's dead. I'm just saying. Friends and admirers of the vanished star gathered for a candlelight remembrance. I cannot talk. In Cadence Theater, followed by remarks from Vane's former fiancé, actor Hector Roland. Since Vane's disappearance, Roland has found success as the star of the Dr. Dent picture series, the seventh of which, Dr. Dent on Impossible Island, opens next month. That's so okay. Like, I don't want to say that Evelyn's in on it, but that seems very pointed. Like, it's like she's looking down at me from above. Which I know that's like a thing people say, but like when she's literally in the attic, like her body was stuffed in the attic, and she's like, it's like she's looking down on me from like that's kind of creepy. Like it takes a dark tone when you know that her dead body is literally above them on this. Like I'm just saying, could she be in on it? I don't know. It just seems a little weird that she'd say that. Okay. Private practice of Dr. Lewis Walters, prenatal care form. New Canaan, Connecticut. Why is she going to a doctor in Connecticut? That's weird. Okay, Miss Victoria Gaina, aka Viola Vane. Date of patient's birth, June 16th, 1911. Patient's age, 22. Current weight of patient, 135 pounds. Current height, 5 foot 1 inch. Patient's eye color, hazel, like me. Oh. Patient's hair color, auburn, kind of like me. Marital status, single. Occupation of patient, actress. Estimated date of delivery, August 15th, 1934. Estimated date of conception, late December to early January 1934. Wait, when did it was like October when she went missing, right? Does it say? Wasn't it? I want to say it was like October, right? So she would have had the baby already. What? Okay. Overview of patient's medical history. The patient detailed prior breaks and lacerations to her limbs, sustained at the hands of her mother. That's a whole nother thing. In addition to these frankly disturbing revelations, thank you, doctor, the patient mentioned having been born almost a month premature herself. The patient has not experienced any major diseases or infections, has no personal or familial history of mental illness. I think her mother might have some mental illness, I'm just saying, and is not currently taking any form of medication. Overall, the patient is currently in excellent physical condition, although her mental state is somewhat overwrought. Interesting. Summary of appointment. The patient reported that the first trimester of her pregnancy had been plagued by persistent headaches, faintness, and fatigue, which she initially interpreted as a result of personal and work-related stress. These symptoms still persist, she said, but with decreased frequency. The patient also experienced moderate to severe nausea consistently throughout her first trimester and was somewhat relieved to inform me that this nausea had died down dramatically over the past few days. The patient reported that along with her recent decrease in nausea became a sharp spike in appetite. Although this progression is not entirely typical of pregnancy in its natural course, I credit some of this returned vigor as well as the ebbing of her less pleasant symptoms to the patient's relocation to her current peaceful countryside environment and the decrease in her rather hectic former schedule. Indeed, I noted to the patient that, had she continued on with her former schedule, the health of the fetus would likely have been in some measure of jeopardy. The patient expressed distress at this, and I assured her that there was no need to worry as long as she is willing to commit to allowing herself to rest and relax. Remember earlier she like disappeared for a while? She was having a baby. Okay. I will be returning on a bi-weekly basis to perform regular examinations on Miss Gaina to ensure that everything is running smoothly and according to schedule. And I will also remain on call should any immediate issues arise. For Miss Gaina's day-to-day needs, I have recommended that Mr. Rowland hire Miss Lucy Eastmont to provide full-time live-in assistance. I have worked with Miss Eastmont on the past and held her in the highest esteem as a caregiver and midwife. At the moment, I suggest Miss Gaina eat heartily, sleep as much and as often as her body demands, and stay off her feet. My concern at the moment is the potential for cephalopelvic disproportion, considering the patient's small stature, but that doesn't seem particularly likely at this juncture. Additional comments. Mr. Rowland, when you first contacted me, you asked if I was capable of discretion, and I replied that I most certainly was, especially in the cases of dashing celebrities, a group with whom I've had plenty of dealings in the past. However, I never could have predicted this rather irregular situation was what you required discretion for. I do nevertheless admire how you're committed to looking after your friend in her time of need. In terms of Miss Vane's medical situation, I'm relieved that she consented to receiving medical supervision at this juncture. I maintain a cautious optimism regarding her condition. To avoid creating paper trail, I'll accept all payments rendered in cash for my services. Okay, so from that, I'm getting that he's used to dealing with celebrities who are trying to hide that they're pregnant, but he finds their situation even more odd, which means I don't think Roland was the father, and he thought it was weird that Roland was like taking care of her, but he wasn't the baby daddy. Anyone else? Because that's what I'm getting from that. Just saying. Okay, so now we have. Okay, this is dated August 12th, which is close to her due date, right? Yeah, okay, so this one was in May, this is in August, and her due date, estimated date of delivery was August 15th, and this is August 12th. So she should be close to popping at this point. I was called by Miss Eastmont a little after 1 p.m. She informed me that the patient had begun experiencing contractions. She's having a baby. I immediately packed the requisite equipment and left for the residence. By the time I arrived, Miss Eastmont had prepared the birthing room, and contractions had begun to occur at regular 5-minute intervals. Sometime during the 4th hour of labor, Miss Gana expressed interest in being given a sedative, a request I was more than willing to fulfill. I administered a low-dosage mixture of morphine and scopolamine. I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that drug. At that time, and the patient became somewhat more relaxed soon thereafter. The patient's labor persisted for 8 hours and 12 minutes in total before full dilation was achieved. The delivery took place at 9:19 at night. The patient delivered a healthy and very vocal infant. The infant was cleaned and dried, and the umbilical cord was clamped and severed. The infant's heart rate, breathing, muscle tone, and reflex response were then measured and all found to be within acceptable ranges. The infant successfully latched and began to nurse approximately 37 minutes after delivery. I then provided the infant a thick blanket and a small woolen cap and placed the infant in the mother's arms. Going forward, I confidently place the care of the mother and the newborn into Miss Eastmont's hands. Once Miss Gaynor returns to work, Miss Eastmont will assume responsibility for the care of the infant, who will remain in New Canaan. So her baby was hidden away in Connecticut. My one recommendation is that the mother take at least a few months to recuperate before returning to the stage. Her spirit may be strong, but her frame is extremely small. It may very well take quite some time for her to feel up to snuff, as it were. However, I worry that she isn't particularly interested in following this piece of advice, and encourage Mr. Rowland to do what he can to convince her to take some time off. Additional comments. I'm sorry that you weren't able to reach New Canaan in time for the birth, Mr. Rowland. It was a noble thing to do, I think, to remain in New York for your show to deter suspicion. I'm glad I was able to at least place a call to your apartment that night so you could hear the infant breathing. It looks like this is the end of our professional correspondence, Mr. Rowland. If you ever find yourself in need of my services or my company, you have my number. That's so sad. So she had a secret baby and he was hidden away with like a nanny in Connecticut. And I don't think Roland was the baby daddy. That's interesting. Okay. What do we have here? The Excelsior Hotel. Was that the place that the director was trying to get lunch at? I think so. Okay. So, okay, we have concierge reports. A Walter Gust from room 102. Returned to complain of disheveled room upon check-in. One night paid at hotel's expense. These are all on November 6th. Patrons stopped to compliment the hotel service upon checkout, feeling well rested and restored in vigor. None of these names are important that I can see. Just after check-in, returned to the front desk to claim the hotel was missing a floor. Distressed but reassured when told we would investigate. What? What? How is it? Hi, Shelby. Yes. Yeah, I got a big tan in Florida. Okay, so literally someone checked into a hotel and then came back to the desk and complained that the hotel was missing a floor. That maybe it's okay. You know how like some hotels like they don't have like the floor 13 because it's like an unlucky number, so it goes from like 12 to 14. Maybe that's what they're freaking out about. I don't. That's weird. Anyway, back to these concierge reports. Following a minor scuffle, escorted from the premises after attempting to drink from hotel's unmanned bar. Not currently a guest at the hotel. Recurring issue with this customer. Okay, so someone likes to sneak into the hotel and try and get drinks. That's fun. Room service to be delivered at 5 p.m., not to be disturbed otherwise. Ooh. Complained of unruly guests on his floor. Asked children to quiet down after neighbor complaint. Chauffeur scheduled for 5:30 p.m. pickup. Okay, now remember, between 5:30 and 6 is when the murder happened. Yeah, this is it's a like murder mystery subscription box. Like every month you get a box and like you have an objective that you have to figure out. Okay. Pushed reservation following lengthy telephone conversation, offered complimentary meal and drinks sent to table during dinner. Guests requested cocktails made to his specifications, champagne, absinthe. Let's remember this was like 1934, okay? Absinthe was still a thing. A dash of bitters. Shot of lime, simple syrup, lime wedge garnish. That happened between 4:53 p.m. and 6:15 p.m., but the name on it is A.R. Laird, which isn't any of our people. But that, remember, the owner of the theater, or was it the director? No, I think it was the owner of the theater, was on the phone for like ever because his reservation got messed up. So I wonder if that was him. Okay. Room service order 1 bottle of champagne and 2 glasses at 5:45 p.m. Okay. 7 p.m. A.R. Laird delivered customers specified drink as requested. Customers guest choked during dinner. Nearby guests assisted and professional medical assistance was not required. But that wasn't until 7 p.m. The murder happened around 6. I wonder if A.R. Laird is like an alias for the owner. Who's Mr. Grady? Okay. This is interesting. Okay. Next, we have Dear Sir and Madam, enclosed is an official summary of the Croft-Myers investigation report concerning case number blah, blah, blah. Requests, clients requested investigation into one Victoria Gaina, alias Viola Vane, specifically information concerning her unexplained absences on weekends, probably visiting her secret baby. Surveillance to begin on October 19th and last until sufficient evidence of activities has been gathered. Interesting. Upon her weekend excursions, Miss Vane, for exact reasons unknown, has been visiting the town of New Canaan, Connecticut, where she has a secret baby. While there has been no hard evidence obtained, the enclosed report contains some speculation on the part of the investigator. No evidence thus far suggests foul play or malfeasance. What it follows is a concise summary and evidence of the investigation's findings. Summary: on each occasion on which she was followed, Miss Vane went out with what seemed to be a deliberate intent to obscure her identity, often wearing large sunglasses and unseasonable hats. Of course, it is possible that, as a famous actress, she was simply hiding her identity to prevent herself from being overwhelmed by her many fans. It is, however, this investigator's theory that Miss Vane knew she was being pursued. I have no evidence to support such claims other than the feeling in my gut. On the first occasion of pursuit, October 19th, 1934, that is getting awfully close to the disappearance, the subject has been boarding a Blue Line train on the Eastern Boundary Railroad. Unfortunately, the train departed before I was able to board. Though her exact destination was unknown, the only stops were in either New York or Connecticut. I obtained a Blue Line map, and in place of futility pursuing the subject, returned to her home neighborhood to question neighbors for information. The only knowledge they possessed of the subject's intended destination seemed ripped straight from gossip columns and was largely discounted. On the date of October 26th, I successfully tailed the subject aboard another Blue Line train, though she moved erratically through the station, furthering my suspicion that the subject knew or suspected she was being followed. The subject disembarked in the town of New Canaan, Connecticut, where a taxicab was waiting for her. I was unable to obtain the taxi's license plate, but observed the vehicle heading east on Elm Street before turning north on Park Street and disappearing from my sight. The only lead available was Chester's Cabs, the company to which the taxi belonged. I was able to discover which cab was at the train station and track down the driver. The driver of the cab in question, Robert Bickle, could not recall where exactly he took the subject. You'd think I'd remember. I would have paid better attention if I'd known she was Viola Vane. Afterward, I obtained a map of New Canaan and identified local hotels, inns, and other potential locations for the subject's possible short-term stay. Sensing a pattern on November 2nd, I awaited the subject in a rented car in New Canaan and observed her entering another waiting taxicab. This time, there was another man present in the rear of the taxi. So she took a man to see her baby. I pursued the vehicle to a gated community outside New Canaan proper, but was unable to enter. I noted that when the taxicab departed a few minutes later, the driver was the only occupant of the vehicle. I surveilled the community throughout the weekend, but the subject was not seen leaving. Of the multiple vehicles that entered and left the community, I was unable to confirm if any were connected to the subject. In addition to personal vehicles entering and leaving, I did observe a Let Us Celebrate catering van, a truck from Take the Plunge Plumbing, and a car from B Positive Home Healthcare. On the weekend of November 9th, no new information on the subject was gained, though she was reported missing that week. She was not observed in New Canaan. In lieu of being able to pursue the subject, I inquired around the New Canaan, stopping in to locations where she might have been spotted, though no one recalled seeing her. The week of November 12th, I worked on confirming the police's runaway theory. Though they usually cater to runaways younger than the subject, none of my usual New York City contacts provided any leads on her whereabouts. Locations in New Canaan provided similar scarce leads. Additionally, due to lack of payment, Croft-Myers Investigations regrets that it is unable to continue the investigation. Case files are always available should you wish to pursue this investigation independently. Blah, 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 blah. Conclusion: this investigator must agree with the police's theory that the subject was labeled as a runaway. There is no discernible evidence to suggest the subject was still within the bounds of New York City or in the frequently visited city of New Canaan. Because she was in an attic, dead. Okay. Interesting. Property agreements. Okay. This agreement is made on January 4th of 1935 between the Cadence Theater, as represented by George Erickson, its owner, hereinafter seller, and Ira Adler and Evelyn Adler, hereinafter buyer, for the sale of the property pursuant to the following terms and conditions, and with the acknowledgement that the buyers will maintain joint and equal ownership of the property following the signing of this agreement. Guarantee of payment. Hector Rowland, whose considerable personal and familial assets have facilitated this agreement, has agreed to fulfill the role of guarantor of the payment. Mr. Rowland agrees to undertake all legal and financial responsibility in ensuring that the agreed upon payment will be fulfilled under agreed upon conditions and within the agreed upon time frame. Mr. Rowland furthermore agrees to forego all future stake and responsibility in the ownership, maintenance, and financial affairs of the property once the conditions of this agreement have been met in full. So was Hector like a co-signer for their loan, basically? That's weird. Financing. This agreement is contingent upon the buyer delivering payment in full within 1 day of signing this agreement. This payment is to be made in cash and will be delivered as soon as the seller delivers the full extent of items and documents requested by the buyer below. The buyer offers to purchase the property from the seller on the following terms. The seller agrees to transfer ownership of all keys required for accessing the premises and areas and objects therein immediately upon the signing of this document. The seller acknowledges no copies or duplicates exist of these keys at this time, and that the buyer will be in sole possession of the means of accessing the property and its contents. The seller agrees to transfer all items located within the property at the time of signing to the buyer. The seller will not, in the process of vacating the premises, remove any items from the property. The seller acknowledges doing so as a violation of the terms of this contract. The seller acknowledges that this agreement must be signed upon initial reading or will otherwise be revoked and agrees to forego the consultation of any legal representation in the process of reviewing and signing this agreement. The seller acknowledges that this is the buyer's first and final offer and that the buyer, who is aware of the seller's precarious financial situation, is not interested in engaging in any form of negotiation in regards to the amount or method of payment. Amount and method of payment. The buyer and seller agreed to the following amount: $250,000. This is the 1930s, Great Depression era. They're like, $250,000. No big deal. What the heck? Okay. Title requirements. The seller shall deliver the deeds of the property to the buyer within 1 day of signing this agreement. If this requirement is not met within the allotted time, the agreement will be rendered null and void. The seller will also deliver to the buyer within the same time frame a properly signed and notarized warranty deed with lien, covenant, or other such form of deed is acceptable to the buyer. The closing is the date on which the seller executed deed is delivered to the buyer. The closing date is designated as January 5th, 1935. Okay. So George Erickson, the owner, sold it to Ira and Evelyn, who were married at that time. And apparently Hector was guaranteeing that they had the money. Interesting. Okay. Oh. Oh. Okay. So the next document is a divorce on the grounds of adultery between Ruth Erickson and George Erickson. Could he be the baby daddy? I'm just saying, I think he could be. I think that's a thing. Both the plaintiff and defendant are residents of the state of New York and have been such for the entirety of their lives. They married in the city of New York in the state of New York on the date of June 6, 1925. Ruth Mary Erickson swears she is the plaintiff in the above entitled action, that she read the complaint for divorce and knows the contents thereof. George Charles Erickson swears he is defendant, blah, 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 blah. Same thing, basically. This cause came to be heard by the Honorable Judge Cormac Holden on the day of July 9th, 1935. So this is like 6 months after her disappearance. Lawrence Kelly, or not even 6 months, it's more than 6 months, like 9 months after her disappearance, right? Lawrence Kelly appears as the attorney for the plaintiff, while Reese Lomax appears as the attorney for the defendant. A timeline of the plaintiff's official complaints and actions are as follows. The plaintiff filed for separation from the defendant on the day of November 20th, 1934. Okay, that's like, what? Okay, like she disappeared, what was it, November 6th? Yeah. So 14 days later, she's like, I'm getting a divorce. Interesting. In the official file for separation, the plaintiff cited adultery and non-support as reasons for filing. On December 4th, 1934, the plaintiff and counsel hired Private Detective Brian Mickelson of Croft Myers Investigations who discovered evidence of the defendant's adultery. On the day of December 20th, 1934, testimony was recorded from one Fiona Jean Johnstone. She confirmed participation in an adulterous relationship with the defendant that lasted from December 1930 until March 1932. Ooh, that's a dirty bird. Okay. An excerpt from Miss Johnstone's statement follows. Georgie and I only ever saw each other at night, if you catch my drift. He'd come and see me at the club where I sing, then wait until everyone else cleared out. Look, fella, I'm not thick. I knew I wasn't the only girl he was seeing, but I broke it off when I found out the other girl was his wife. He kept coming around for a couple of months after that, but then he just vanished. If you ask me, he found himself a new girl. Viola Vane, perhaps? On December 19th, 1934, Lawrence Kelly obtained financial records from the defendant and confirmed a gross misappropriation of personal funds, aka the mob. On January 2nd, 1935, the plaintiff filed papers to hold the defendant at fault in the divorce. In the filing, the plaintiff seeks sole custody of single daughter, funding for the support of plaintiff and daughter, and their residence at Birchwood, Tannersville, Pennsylvania. The defendant and his counsel have elected to not contest the divorce. Upon review, it has been adjudged that the defendant is guilty of adultery and non-support, and the plaintiff is entitled to a final and complete divorce from the defendant. The plaintiff is to be granted sole custody of their daughter and the aforementioned residence. Henceforth, funds from the defendant are to be allocated in support of the plaintiff and their daughter on a regular basis. Today, July 9th, 1935, upon the entry of these forms, the final judgment dissolving the marriage between plaintiff and defendant shall be recognized. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, and now we have another letter from Hector. Ira, as a strange duo. Okay, this is August 13th, 1934, so this is before her disappearance. Ira, as a strange duo approaches the end of its wildly successful run, success that is in no small part due to yours truly, I think it's appropriate for me to take some more time to relax and rejuvenate. The actor's body is his primary tool, after all. I simply cannot, in good conscience, allow my instrument to become worn and weary. The entire production would be sure to suffer for that, I should think. Not to mention that Lucy and Lewis, the folks I've hired to keep an eye on my place in New Canaan while I'm in the city, have simply been doing too phenomenal of a job. It's become impossible to stay away for long. You know what they say, good friends are hard to find, but good help is nearly impossible. All this is to say that I'll be out of the city today and Tuesday, taking in more of the fresh Connecticut air to which I've lately become so accustomed. I'll be sure to be back in time for the first duo performance in the week on Wednesday. Unfortunately, this does seem that I'll be missing the initial reading of You Can Leave It Right Here. I'll be sure to look over my part sometime soon. As we both know, you of all people owe me a certain amount of leniency, and I expect you'll find this an acceptable arrangement. Ooh. Let me know if there's anything I can pick up for you, or perhaps for Evelyn or even Joe while I'm away. News, souvenirs, or anything else of the sort. Pass this information on to whomever else you think needs to know. See you soon, Hector. And then there's PS, and then it's a whole bunch of numbers. So that's definitely a code that I'm going to have to figure out. Interesting. And it ends in like question marks too. So like it's definitely something, but I don't know what it is. But I like that line, you of all people owe me a certain amount of leniency. Like he's got something on Ira. That's weird. Okay. Well, that's all that came with this. So I really do think that George Erickson is probably the baby daddy of her missing child. But does that mean that he's, exempt from being her murderer? I don't think so. Okay, so we got 2 items in here. We got this It's a Boy ribbon, and then we got this lace glove. But I don't really know what that could pertain to. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to like uncode some of these things and figure out what they're saying. So until then, I'm gonna hold off on figuring out who is not the killer this time. But um definitely a lot to unpack here. Holy cow, there was a secret baby, and apparently it's probably the like owner of the theaters. That's nuts. Okay, but here's the thing. Like, okay, Ira and Evelyn bought the theater from the Ericksons, and they are the ones who are the current owners' grandparents. Okay. So, did they take in her baby? Because they don't know about the baby. The only one that knows about the baby is Hector. I'm so confused. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I'm going to decode everything and then I will do a, box 5.5 and we'll discuss my findings and all of that. So stay tuned for that. And holy cow, there's a lot going on here. There's a love triangle between like the director and her and the other chick. And then apparently when that fizzled out, she started sleeping with the director or the owner. Like, what is this girl? Little Miss Thing here is just throwing the kitty at anyone. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm going to end this stream. I hope you guys enjoyed this and stay tuned for what I figure out.